Hey guys, DeadlyVampirous here, and we are back with part 2 of Eric's route of Seduce Me to the Demon War. So I last time left off at this dialogue. I'll go ahead and continue from this point. My curiosity, however, wouldn't leave me alone. It wanted me to explore the castle. I was handed an opportunity to explore a castle in the demon world, and part of me did not want it to go to waste. I was torn on what to do. You know what? I kind of feel like exploring, so let's explore. There was no way I was letting this chance pass me by. I stood and walked towards the door, opening it a crack and looking around. There was no one in the hall, but there were 2 directions to go. Which way? I look right. I went with right. I closed the door behind me as I exited my room and began to make my way down the right corridor. Everything was definitely medieval style, and I felt a bit small in the hall. It was like I was in a fairy tale. Walking around in a wedding dress, it felt almost dreamlike. The passage seemed long, decorated with wall candles, paintings, and random curtains and flowers. It was mystical to see, and I smiled. As I approached another fork in the hall, however, I sighed. Really, how does anyone find their way around? I looked back, knowing I hadn't walked far from my room. I could turn back. Yet, let's take a look this time. I was heading right, so decided to try the opposite direction this time around. I turned left and headed down the hall, greeted by more fantastical decor. The hallways began to almost drive me nuts. I found myself going upstairs and downstairs and wound up in a 4-way corridor. Where have I landed myself? I became frustrated. Maybe giving in to my curiosity was a bad idea. However, the sound of an argument traveled through the air and caught my attention.
And you brought me this. Why?
Sir, the rebel queen demanded it be brought here along with the other materials.
A flower is not important to the ritual. Throw it away or something.
But, sir...
I don't want to hear it. Get out!
From a nearby door, a man dressed in a black cloak, holding a white lily-like flower, practically ran out. He left the door ajar, but let out a sigh before turning to walk away, not noticing me. What the... I walked over and peeked in, seeing that the room was a library. It was huge, and in the middle of it, by a table covered in books, was a lanky man who cast the shadow spell before.
I know you are there, human.
How did he know? What, was he able to smell me or something? The man turned to look at me from over his shoulder.
Please don't just stand there. If you wish to come in, then come in. I'm not fond of people peeking into doorways.
Immediately I stepped into the room, not wanting to be rude. The man turned towards me and crossed his arms, taking in my full form.
Well, what may I help you with?
I was just wandering around. I didn't mean to intrude on anything.
You needn't. You'll be returned to the human world soon enough.
I bit my lip. He was right. I really didn't need to wander around if I was never going to return. Still, my curiosity was pulling me to explore the castle, and there I was in a library. Well, I simply wanted to see more of the place I happened to land in.
I see. And have you found anything of interest in your little exploration?
I found this library, didn't I?
That you have.
The man turned back to the table as I took a moment to look around. There were so many books, it was almost dizzying to peer at them all. How much information was stored here? The man glanced at me as he continued to work on whatever he was focusing on.
I'm curious about something, human. Since you're here, you can answer this.
I turned back to the man as he straightened up and faced me once again.
Are you well versed in war?
Excuse me? That came out of nowhere. Why would he expect a woman in a wedding dress to know about war? No, I can't say that I am. Humans tend to try and stay out of war.
Truly? I'm surprised. I've heard that your world is ruled by multiple leaders and beliefs. How are you not constantly at war?
From the tone of his voice, it almost sounded like he was mocking me. Did he think little of humans? I glared. We try and maintain peace because we all know we're different. We don't always agree on things, but we all mostly agree that war is bad, so we avoid it. The man took one more look up and down my form, most likely searching for some physical sign that I was lying or exaggerating. When he seemed to notice that I wasn't, he rubbed his chin gently as he leaned back against the table behind him.
Humans are such interesting creatures. You have your own societies and countries, ruled by presidents and governments. You are ununited, and yet you thrive. I wonder if the demon world can benefit from such a seemingly ignorant agreement.
Was he being serious right now? Why was he being stuck up? I crossed my arms, glaring hard at him. Why does it matter to you what the human world does? You're a demon. Things we do there don't affect anything here.
Ah, but that is where you are mistaken.
The man walked around the table, gesturing to the books and maps that had covered its surface.
When fighting a war, you need to look at all of the details to try and find the most efficient ways to bring your enemy down. When resolving it, you must be able to not only bring peace, but you must also know how to manage the land you have conquered in the aftermath.
When fighting... Oh, sorry, that says blinds. Okay. I looked at the map to see multiple routes and ideas plastered over the parchment. Was he seriously doing this much research for this war? However, the man simply crossed his arms.
Unfortunately, I suppose that research on the human world would be for naught. We are two different worlds, after all. Yours is built on steel and electricity, while our world is flooded with magic and stone.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why was he even talking to me at this rate? The man smirked at the agitated look on my face and chuckled. What's so funny?
I guess it's also true that humans are easily angered. Your expression gives you away so easily.
I growled before turning on my heels and leaving the library. Rude ass. I was better off in my room. I remained in my room until the night came. I was given food which looked like soup. The woman who gave it to me apologized, letting me know that food was scarce until the upcoming harvest, which was a couple of days away. Being that I was only staying the day, I didn't mind much. I was more concerned over what I was given to eat. It was some sort of stew with a mysterious chunk swimming in its broth. It smelled surprisingly good, but who knew how it tasted? Just eat it. I gulped. I had to try it. I had to eat it. I hadn't eaten in 2 days, even before I came to the demon world. I was pretty much certain Diana wouldn't poison me now, and I was fairly sure that she wouldn't serve me anything disgusting. I lifted the spoon that was sitting in the broth, letting it capture some of the stew as it rose. I mean, it wasn't terribly scary to look at. I gulped and slowly brought the spoon to my lips, feeling the heat emanate from the stew. A knock rapped on my door, breaking me out of my train of thought. Huh? Come in. The door opened to reveal Diana with a plate holding things I recognized, bread and cheese. I let out a heavy sigh of relief before Diana laughed.
I suggest not trying that. As good as it smells, the taste would not sit well with you.
Instantly, I moved the bowl to the nearby table, thankful that I did not have to try it. Diana handed me the plate and nodded, reassuring me that what was on it was indeed what it seemed.
It's not much, but it's human food. Eat up.
I will. I began to chow down, feeling the hunger in my stomach dissipate with each bite and swallow. The food I was eating surprisingly was delicious. As I began to crave something to drink, Diana chuckled and formed a small glob in her hand, filled with clear liquid that I assumed to be water. I took it and drank it down, feeling my thirst quenched before I let out a sigh. I feel so much better.
I can tell. Take a moment to finish eating, then we'll head for the ritual.
I looked up at Diana, stunningly excited. Everything was prepared for her. Was it possible to go home now? As if she read my mind, she smiled and nodded.
We finished the main preparations. We just need to head over and we'll start.
I couldn't continue eating. My mind went into an obsessive frenzy of wanting to go home. I stood up, moving the plate and goblet to the nearby table. Let's go.
Huh?
Are you sure?
I nodded, not wanting to waste any more time. I needed to get home, and I was tired of waiting. Dennis stared before nodding and heading for the door, opening it for me and exiting after me. As she closed the door behind her, I began to feel my heart flutter in relieved joy. I was heading home. Diana led me down the corridor to the war room, where I had originally arrived to reveal the table covered in plants and artifacts of different kinds. None of it made sense to me, but I had to only assume it was what was needed for the spell to work. Diana walked to the table and took note of what she saw, nodding.
This should work.
You're in doubt?
Have to be after the last time we tried sending her home. Do we have a human anchor?
No, you're on your own this time. But we'll make sure you survive casting it.
This spell should work, however, because we'll be using energy material. It will only require a slice of your energy on top of these items, which your guard can refill immediately after this.
Just make sure you don't die casting it.
Diana smiled at her guard before turning to me.
So, are you ready to return home?
She didn't have to ask. I'm ready. Diana nodded once more before turning back to the table. She lifted her arms over the surface and lowered her head, muttering under her breath.
Otome portas, apriat nobis, largiatur exidium, desiderium.
As she spoke, the table began to glow as did she. A dark purple aura began to surround her form as she lifted and arched her head back, staring at the ceiling. A glimpse at her eyes made me gasp. Warm golden orbs covered her blood-red irises, glowing with magic. She was deep within the spell, and I could see it slowly draw energy from her body. The items on the table began to gleam wildly, light orbs floating from them and dancing in the air above the table's surface. They began to weave back and forth with each other, almost as the lights were dancing to a silent tune. The other demon stepped back as Diana moved her arms up and pointed to the dancing lights. Her finger pointed into the air, leading the lights to follow where it directed obediently. She drew a large circle in the air, and the lights followed like a perfect trail, spreading out and forming a large void in the air. As they finally stopped moving, they burst into a bright light, causing the demons and I to cover our eyes from it. It engulfed the room, but died down just as fast, revealing a small tear in the air. Diana quickly leaned forward and dug her hands into it before pulling the tear apart, revealing my bedroom? Diana continued to pull the tear open, giving enough space for me to jump through.
Hurry and go through! This is your chance!
I wasn't going to let it go to waste. I gripped the bottom of my dress and rushed forward, using momentum to jump into the air and forward towards the void. I could almost reach it. I could feel the air conditioning of my room right at my fingertips.
She will never leave this world alive!
The Demon Lord's voice rang through the air just as I saw my fingertips pass through the tear. What stopped the rest of my body was a red light and force, forcing me and Diana back from the opening. Gah! I felt my body fly backwards and slam into the wall before I landed on the stone ground. I heard Diana as well land beside me with a painful thud. I looked up and felt my heart break as the tear became warped in red lightning, zipping itself closed and vanishing into thin air. No, this could not be.
Damn it!
That should have worked! How could it have failed?
We must have missed something. Was there anything we had forgotten?
No, I verified everything myself.
Then why was the Demon Lord able to overpower a gate spell?
I highly doubt you know either, brute.
Stop fighting! We need to make a plan and all of you are just being stupid! Stupid!
Are you all right, Isaiah?
I'm fine.
I was too lost in my mind to fully understand what was going on around me. I was so close. I felt the other side. I had almost made it home. Why couldn't I go home? Diana's grunt of pain next to me made me shoot my head towards her, and I watched her slowly push herself off the ground and glare at the table.
The Demon Lord must have done something more than simply bring her here.
What could he have done?
The Demon Lord is incapable of doing anything of the sort. His lackey imps must have done something to her.
A spell?
A curse.
I looked at the rabbit woman, seeing her stare wide at me. The other demons stared at me as well, and suddenly I felt like I was on display. Was something wrong with me?
She will not leave the demon world alive. He must have placed some sort of curse on her to prevent her from leaving this plane. In order to leave, she'd have to die.
What? My mind went blank. Did the Demon Lord really curse me? Was I forced to stay in this world until I died? I could never go
Are
back?
you suggesting a barrier curse?
That would explain the red energy that sealed the tear.
But dark magic like that requires...
The blood of 1,000 demons. He must have sacrificed part of his army to cast a curse on her that would prevent her from leaving.
The Demon Lord is that desperate for her. The only way to break that kind of curse is to kill the caster, the Demon Lord himself.
She's trapped here until this war is over.
My body began to shiver violently. The Demon Lord killed 1,000 demons just to trap me here? Why? Why? I slammed my fist into the ground and began to scream. I want to go home. Why? I could feel the sympathy and anger in the room, but I didn't care. I was beyond livid. I was far past broken. I was seeing red. Ugh! As my voice ripped through the air, a bright light erupted through the room once again. Everyone covered their eyes, but Diana quickly scrambled to get on her knees and covered me with her body. She held me tightly as the light invaded the space and slowly began to fade. As the light finally died, everyone moved their hands to see what had happened. In the air was a white tear that was slowly opening. Facing down towards the table, something was coming. I could feel it in the air. The guard summoned his spear and pointed at the tear, glaring at it and gritting his teeth.
Something's coming!
In reply, Diana summoned what looked like a saber and placed it in front of us.
Ready yourselves! It could be the Demon Lord!
The other demons in the room readied themselves and stared at the tear, either holding a weapon or preparing a spell. I felt the air change, becoming heavier as the tear began to grow. The energy around it began to pulsate, making everyone in the room that much more tense. I stared at the tear as well, frightened as what was come. Was it the Demon Lord? His minions? My mind began to circle through fearful ideas of what was about to appear. My heart almost stopped. Falling from the tear and landing on the table were the 5 Incubi brothers. They were piled on top of one another, having come through one at a time. However, as the last brother landed, the boys fell to one side, toppling off of the table and landing on the floor. The rebels around me stared at the fallen pile of Incubi, confused and surprised. As the tear in the air closed, the ogre man was the first to lower his sword.
What the hell?
Who are they?
Careful! They could be the Demon Lord's men!
No! The rebels looked to me as I stood up, Diana following and still protecting me as I stared at the boys on the ground. They all looked dazed and a bit shell-shocked from having fallen twice in rapid succession. I almost couldn't believe it. There they were, right in front of me. My mind couldn't help but remember how I had first met them. They had all been on the floor of my mansion, unconscious and wounded. Now they were in front of me in the demon world. I know them. I stared at the one I was meant to marry, seeing him slowly shake his head and rise from the ground. They came to rescue me. He came to rescue me. My heart became overjoyed and full of warmth and happiness. I was going to go home. The question was, how? As the sight of the boys kept the demon's attention, a second tear opened above them, causing everyone to look up. 4 women dropped down from the tear and somehow managed to fall into the arms of the Incubi behind Erik.
Whoa!
I gotcha!
Whoa! Are you okay? I gotcha! It's okay!
James!
Whoa! Are you alright?
I stared wide-eyed. Their wives came too? I watched the boys and girls finally plant themselves on the ground before looking around. As Erik spotted me, however, he began to rush towards me.
Princess!
I love it. They have wives. What? Ah! The other brothers do. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's get back to reading. I wanted to rush back to him. I wanted to run over and wrap my arms around his neck. I missed the touch of his lips and his embrace. Yet my body would not allow me to move forward. In fact, I shied away and hid behind Diana, gripping her waist and averting my eyes from him.
What the?
Still?
I shut my eyes, despite my heart screaming at me to turn toward Erik. I knew that he would enthrall me to break this hold on me, so I wanted to look at him and let him. However, my body continued to duck behind Diana's body, avoiding Erik's gaze. As I heard Erik step forward, Diana wrapped an arm back around her and placed on my back. For some reason, I felt comforted by her touch. Was she casting a spell on me?
Diana, if you please.
Not until you explain what is going on. Why does she hide from you?
I assure you, it's not what you think.
I will not repeat my question.
I felt Diana's hand clench over my back. I felt a natural elation wash over me at the protection she was providing me, but my heart cried out for Erik.
She does want to see Erik. Something's stopping her from doing that.
And I'm supposed to believe this?
Please, just let me.
I watched from behind Diana as her guard quickly stepped forward and placed himself between Diana and Erik, spear pointing at my incubus.
I suggest not taking another step forward.
Wait!
The rabbit-eared woman in the midst of the tension quickly rushed over to me and bent down to look me directly in the eyes. I looked at her, trying to convey my need to see Erik through my eyes.
Hold still, okay?
What are you?
Ostende mihi kotum.
Staring into the woman's eyes, I watched as a warm gold hue painted over her sweetly pale blue eyes before she closed them. As if something had been unlocked, a large click resonated through my mind. All at once, I felt my will take control, and I stood up straight, now finally able to do what I desired without any resistance.
Love.
Erik! I quickly ran around Diana and rushed towards Erik, wrapping my arms around his neck and feeling him envelop me in his own arms. His warm embrace made my heart squeeze in my chest as I held him close to me. I smiled as Erik kissed over my cheeks, his embrace conveying how beyond happy he was to have me back, willingly in his arms. We have to kiss him. I tied my arms around Erik and tilted my head to kiss him. My heart fluttered at the touch and taste of his lips against mine. He eagerly kissed me back, tightening his own hold on me lovingly. Diana turned to the rabbit-eared woman with a look of pure confusion on her face.
What? Just...
She's under some sort of secondary spell. Repulsion, it seems. What I cast on her was an emotional release spell, and that temporarily removed the hold on her.
But she's been here a full day, and none of us felt any sort of hold on her.
Well, we didn't exactly figure out that she was cursed either.
Cursed?
I felt Erik's hold on me tighten as I looked up at his face. He looked at Diana with an expression full of concern and confusion. As I heard Diana sigh, I turned slightly to watch her cross her arms.
Yes. She's been cursed by the Demon Lord. She cannot leave until she dies or until we kill him.
The Incubi looked at each other in surprise, but Erik kept his eyes to Diana, and he kept me tight in his
I'm
embrace.
assuming you plan to kill the Demon Lord, right? When will this happen?
Yes, in 1 week's time.
1 week?
Where is this number coming from, Succubus?
We need to fully prepare ourselves for the final stage, which I'm certain will only take a couple of days. We've pinned him into a corner. The Demon Lord will fall.
That's rather bold to assume.
She's right, though. We can prepare everything in that time frame, right?
And if he does the same and attacks us before then?
He won't.
I watched as Diana walked over and cleared the table of the materials they had gathered for the gate spell, revealing a physical map of the Abyssal Plains. She pointed to a spot on the map, a peninsula surrounded by water labeled as the Decaying Sea.
We'll cast a barrier spell along the edge of the peninsula and around the castle. He and his army won't be able to move from that spot until we break it ourselves, which will be during the siege.
Where would we get the energy needed for that kind of spell?
We won't be using energy.
The other rebel demons in the room suddenly tensed up, staring at Diana in surprise. What was she going to do?
My lady, you're not suggesting...
The Demon Lord has shown how far he is willing to go to win this war. It's only fitting to show the extent we'll go to in response.
As much as I agree with you, this seems a little rash.
What are you guys talking about?
Are they allowed to know?
I plan to put a barrier curse around the Demon Lord's castle and army. It's temporary, so it won't need the blood of 1,000 demons. But it will need the sacrifice of at least one demon life.
And I assume you'll be sacrificing one of my soldiers.
Is this our only option?
There are other options, but they will most likely take a lot of energy to pull off.
It just depends on what we want to do. If we want to do this immediately, then the barrier curse is indeed the best option.
I'm not opposed to performing the curse. As rash as it is, it will make our lives easier in the long run.
You expect me to hand over one of my men? My soldiers joined the rebellion to kill the Demon Lord, not to get their throats slit before even seeing the final battle?
It's wrong, but can we really afford to spend any more energy? Diana already spent a lot trying to send the human back.
What is the other option?
The rabbit woman and the fairy moved towards the map and pointed at the peninsula.
We could form tall rock walls around the castle. Box him in.
It will take a lot of our energy, but we can recover in that week period.
And what will stop the Demon Lord from tearing down the walls?
I can imbue the walls with holy magic.
The Incubi and I looked at him, all of us equally surprised. A demon with holy magic? How?
How the fuck did you get holy magic? You look and smell like a demon.
The guard held up his wrapped hand, letting the beads around it jangle with a sudden motion.
I've had the ability to use holy magic ever since I was taken in by my lady's family. There's no doubt that I am a demon, but I can't recall how I gained this ability.
How is holy magic different than demon magic?
It's white magic. Unlike demon magic, holy magic isn't so finicky. Think of it as warding or dispelling magic. You can't bless air or anything that doesn't have physical form, but you can bless objects to fight back against other forms of magic.
If the walls were blessed with holy magic, the Demon Lord wouldn't be able to escape until we released him.
Why not just trap him forever?
That's idiotic. He would still be a threat regardless. Holy magic doesn't last forever. And stone will crumble eventually.
He's right. We wouldn't be able to keep the walls up forever.
The situation became more and more complicated the more we discussed it. How were we going to go about this?
We can't just sit around and debate this forever. The longer we wait, the more we risk him striking back at us.
But is it worth killing someone to trap him?
When we finally strike, we will lose hundreds, if not thousands, of soldiers anyway. What difference will it make to lose one more life on top of this?
Soulless fuck.
We can still cage him in.
I bit my lip. It was a really tough decision. A curse or a trap, which was better? Both had their prices, but we had to choose one. From the look of it, no one wanted to speak up, so I felt the urge to say something. Maybe I would be the one who would determine everything. But which method would be the best choice? I don't know. I mean, does she give me an indication here about? Okay, I don't know. So curse. Do it. Everyone in the room looked at me as I finally spoke up. We need to be better than the Demon Lord. He was willing to sacrifice life to trap me here, but it only showed how desperate he was to win, and how little he valued his life. He would lose this war one way or another. It wasn't worth losing someone who could help turn the tide of war. When can you put a barrier up?
We can leave after this, meeting is over.
Are you sure this is the best choice?
The curse isn't the only option. We need to show that we're better than him. Everyone nodded, some in reluctant, while the others did with confidence. I looked at Diana just in time to catch a twitch from her visible eye, but she shook her head and looked to the rabbit woman.
Are you quite positive this will work?
I am very certain. Since it will be just 3 of us going, we can shadow travel there and be back by the morning.
Diana looked at her guard and nodded.
Very well. If you believe it will work, then I trust you will make sure it does.
As the guard nodded and slightly bowed, the other demons seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Were they worried about performing the curse? Diana shook her head before crossing her arms and looking directly at me.
So, since you'll be here for a while, we might as well give you names that you can use to refer to everyone here.
Are we getting human names?
Must we?
Diana rolled her eyes and gestured to each demon, naming them on the fly.
For the sake of time, we'll use simple names. This is Rabbit, our magic advisor, Sergeant, commander of our armies, Shadow, leader of our assassins, and Faye, our nomadic force ambassador.
Sergeant, I'm a commander, succubus. Shouldn't my name be Commander?
It's easier on the tongue, though, to say Sergeant.
My lady, what shall they call me?
Diana looked at Sario for a moment before turning towards me, a look of seriousness emanating from her eyes.
You may call him Sero. He is my personal guard, and he is always by my side.
The other demons and Sero seemed to be surprised. Was Sero his true demon name? Why would she give me his true name?
Are you sure?
Call him only if your life depends on it. Do not abuse this permission.
So I got a new guardian. Whoop, Diana loves me. I'm just kidding. Okay, anyway. Her eyes seemed to burn as she gazed into mine, full of hard intent and warning. I mentally noted her seriousness as she ran a hand through her hair.
Well, now that we have a plan and introductions are out of the way, I believe we can end this meeting. We have a lot to accomplish in 1 week.
What about us? You don't expect us to sit around.
Actually, I do. You all don't belong on the battlefield.
Whoa. Huh?
I will not take untrained and unarmed beings into a war zone.
Hold on. I interjected, stepping forward and crossing my arms at Diana. She seriously wasn't going to make us stay back while she fought the Demon Lord, was she? Diana squinted at me, pressing her lips together into a fine line. However, I meant what I said. We could fight too.
You expect me to trust that you can fight in a war?
Let me and my brothers train then. We're demons, for fuck's sake. We know how to fight.
The boy stared at Diana as she turned her head towards Sam. He was right, though. They knew how to train, so they knew how to fight. If they fought with the rebellion, there would be a better chance of winning this war.
You all realize this is a war, correct? You can die here.
We understand completely.
We understand, Diana.
Diana could only stare at our group as we challenged her proclamation. I wrapped my hand around my fiancé's arm, frightened at the idea of participating in a war, but knowing that we need all the strength we could muster to finish off the Demon Lord. This was the only way that I could go home. Defeated, Diana sighed and rubbed her temples.
Very well. I can't exactly keep you here like prisoners, so it will be up to you if you choose to train for battle. However, I highly suggest just staying here and allowing us to handle it.
I nodded, as did the others. This was really happening. We were going to kill the Demon Lord, and we had 1 week to either prepare for war or wait it out. Diana turned towards me and looked down at my outfit. I had nearly forgotten that I was still in my wedding dress until Diana pointed at my chest.
Lumen infere, bellum tabescere, serene.
I stared at her, unsure of what she was speaking in Latin, until I felt the fabric around my body shift and change. I quickly looked down to see my wedding dress morph into an outfit that looked perfect for the demon world. The white top shifted into a long-sleeved, oversized tunic with a leather corset and vest, while the bottom part of the gown split and wrapped around my legs, forming into dark leggings. My shoes stretched into long, knee-high boots.
Wow. Very nice outfit.
I blushed, getting used to the feel of the outfit. The corset wasn't tight, but it was still something new along with the rest of the garb. Erik somehow smiled down at me and kissed over my forehead.
You look wonderful, Princess.
Thank you.
Faye, Rabbit, you both should finish your preparations and head over to the Demon Lord's castle for the spell.
Oh, Diana's so nice giving me an outfit. Anyway, let's continue.
How are you going to get there?
I'll get us there, no problem. Just make sure we don't get stuck there or lost.
No promises!
Sarah, make sure the job is done.
I shall, my lady.
Soto, Faye, and Rabbit began to make their way out of the room as Diana turned toward me and my group. As they left, Diana let out a small sigh.
I will take you to some rooms you may rest in.
Thank you, Diana. Diana merely nodded and led our group out of the room, towards our new temporary rooms. I felt insanely nervous. This entire situation was beyond my imagination. Stuck in the demon world under two kinds of enchantments. That was unreal even for me. Still, we were going to work towards finishing this war and getting me home. We had to do everything we can to keep our focus straight. As Erik and I were escorted to our room, I felt the need to cling to Erik's arm. It had been only a day since I had taken away from the human world, but for the longest time I had to be enthralled to get closer to him. Now I was freely and willing able to hold onto Erik's arm. I couldn't help it. I needed to feel closer to him after all this time. Being separated was not something any bride wanted from their soon-to-be partner. I wrapped my arms around Erik's arm, hearing him chuckle and lay his free hand over my arms lovingly.
You know, I wanted to walk down the aisle with you as your husband. I was so worried when you didn't show up to the ceremony.
My heart sank as I looked down. I hadn't wanted to leave him at the altar, but the demon lord had other plans. I gritted my teeth before feeling Erik's lip on my temple, causing me to look back up at him.
I know it wasn't your doing, love. Don't be upset. You weren't gone long.
Not gone long. I had been in the embezzled plains for a full day. How was that not long? How long was I missing for? Erik rubbed his neck and looked away, a small blush forming on his cheeks.
Around 5 hours.
5 hours? I was here a full day. How does that work?
Well, time runs differently here than it does in the human world. In the time it takes for an hour to go by in the human world, 5 go by here in the demon world.
My mind spun slightly at the deal. Time moved differently here. I shook my head and let it go. At least I wasn't gone very long in the human world. What happened when you found out I was missing?
Well, your father was demanding that Sam open a missing persons investigation since he's a police officer. Luckily, James was able to calm everyone down, and with Irides's energy, he blocked everyone's memory and told them to return home and the real wedding would begin later.
James can do that?
Only with his wife's help. That gave us time to try to locate you. When we did, we all decided to come through to get you back.
I could only imagine what it had been like, all of them huddled in a room trying to find me. I felt a little flattered, but I knew that was because that they all cared about me, the wives included. I was happy that they did, and I was back with Erik at last. Our walk continued until I entered my old room with Erik. Our guide left us alone, needing to prep for the rest of the day. Erik sat on the bed, ushering me to sit beside him. Like a magnet, I was drawn to him, sitting beside him. It was a major relief for my mind to know that everything was going to be taken care of. It was an even larger relief to know that it could be with the man I loved in the meantime. I laid my head on Erik's shoulder as he wrapped an arm around me.
Are you really okay?
I nodded, the only thing that was wrong with me being trapped. But there was nothing I could do until we got to the Demon Lord. Erik seemed to know this as well and kissed over my head.
Well, at least you were no longer disgusted by me.
Erik. The feeling of love ran through my body as I settled into the situation. I could finally hold him and love him as I meant to instead of being cruel. It was a blessing. Erik nodded once again before hugging me softly to him. Leaning us back across the bed, I wrapped my arms unconsciously around him and listened to the rhythm of his breathing. It was slow, relaxed, which made me in turn feel at peace.
We'll get to go home soon.
I know. I closed my eyes, letting our embrace slowly entice me to sleep. It didn't bother me that I was dressed with my boots still on. It was such a peaceful transition. I barely felt the shift between being awake and being asleep. I held Erik so close to me, listening to his heartbeat. The simple syncopation of it filled my own heart with such joy that I could not deny the smile on my face from stretching further. Whatever held me for so long no longer had hold of my mind and my body, allowing my heart to once again guide my actions. As I slept, however, a voice I had not heard in a while reappeared.
Why? Why did you do that?
Huh? Within the darkness of my dream appeared a familiar purple orb, floating in the vast space. I felt once again charmed by it, but I was more confused as to why it was in my dream and why it had asked me such a question. You.
Why would you do that?
Do what? What are you doing here?
I don't understand.
What are you doing here? I had to repeat myself. The orb didn't move or change, but something about looking at it made me feel unsure. Why was the spirit haunting me?
I don't understand why you like him.
Why I like Erik? Wait, was the spirit the reason why I was aggressive to Erik? I glared at the orb, suddenly putting two and two together. You were the one who made me act so cruel towards him.
He's icky! He's an icky man!
I loved him dearly and didn't want to treat him like I did. If I was being forced, then I needed to stop the one who was forcing me.
Loving a person doesn't make them less icky.
What is so icky about him?
He talks funny. He keeps touching you. He has those...
Sex eyes?
Yeah! He's so icky! Icky!
I'm not as disgusting as you make me out to be, Spirit.
My heart jumped at the sound of Erik's voice. In front of me appeared a reddish shadow, which quickly formed itself into Erik. The orb seemed to pulsate at the sight of him.
Icky man!
My name is Erik, and you are not welcome in my princess's dreams or her body.
You're not either!
Erik? Erik looked back to me and smiled before stepping forward, making the orb back away a bit. I couldn't tell if he was in fear or anger, but the pulsing energy around the orb seemed to become larger at Erik's stare.
My duty is to protect my princess from anything that threatens her. You, rogue spirit, are considered a threat.
All you do is touch her and take her energy.
That's not true.
What else does the icky man do?
I opened my mouth to retort back but suddenly froze, feeling my thoughts escape me. For some reason, I couldn't remember anything else Erik had done except for what the spirit said. He would kiss me, hold me, and take my energy. This was wrong. Something was definitely wrong. Why couldn't I pin down more things Erik did for me? I held my head and shut my eyes, trying to focus harder on my thoughts. Erik, however, stepped towards the orb, a group of ethereal tendrils emerging from his back.
That's enough. You don't belong here, Spirit.
I expected the spirit to fight back, but it didn't say anything more. After a moment of silence, the spirit faded into the darkness of the dream. Erik and I both let out a small sigh of relief.
Are you okay?
Erik nodded before wrapping his arms around me.
I swear that I will keep you safe.
The words Erik spoke responded in my chest, making me feel light and believe every word that escaped his lips. I felt safe enough just to hear his determination. Still, I couldn't help but feel a small restlessness in my body, despite being in a dream. I thought that sleeping would help my anxiousness at the situation I was in, but it only made me more worried. With this new fear in my mind, I wasn't sure if it was going to be able to hold out until we defeated the Demon Lord. A spirit was really actually haunting my thoughts. This was insane, to say the least. Still, the spirit was quelled for now, at least until we found a way to expel it from my body. I woke that morning before Erik, physically refreshed but mentally troubled. The event that ran through my dreams both bewildered me and scared me. How long was the spirit going to be stuck to me? A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts and woke Erik.
Who's there?
It's us. We brought food.
Can we come in?
Sure. Oh, I just keep leaving the waves now. It's so happy, sorry. The thought of food made me relax a bit, and forget about the circumstances I was under. The door opened to reveal the other Incubi and their wives, holding plates of food. James and Iridessa, however, each carried two full plates, passing one to me and Erik.
Oh, Thank you, James.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
You'll never guess who prepared it, though.
My mind instantly went to Matthew or James. They were usually the ones who made food when they lived in my house. Still, it could have been Damien as well. But then my mind cycled to the rebel leaders and Diana. We were in their castle as their guests, so it would make sense that they made us food. Looking down my plate, I noticed the selection of food. Fruit slices, bread, cheese, and some form of meat jerky. It seemed native to the demon world, but it was indeed human food. Using process elimination, I decided that it was probably Diana.
How did you both sleep? Our rooms are on the opposite end of the hall, so we didn't know how you two were doing.
Did you two get to catch up?
Please, Matthew. They obviously did more than catch up. A bit of Twilight Tango? Sensual salsa? I bet he dipped right in.
Well...
Erik and I looked at each other, ignoring Norin's innuendo, as we thought of the seriousness of the situation. Do you want to tell them what was going on? I'll explain. I didn't want Erik to be the one to explain. The spirit was in my body, and it was my problem. I motioned for Erik to eat before turning to the group and starting my explanation. Well, there's something we found out last night. I haven't been in control of myself because of something.
What did you find out?
Wait, you're not saying that...
Hey, are you pregnant?
Erik choked. I quickly turned my head to see Erik covering his mouth and coughing almost violently, most likely trying not to suffocate on the food in his mouth. He quickly swallowed his food and smiled painfully at the group.
No. She is not pregnant.
Erik was right. There was a whole different matter. For a second, I wondered what Erik thought about the question. But more importantly, we needed to let the group know what was going on.
Is having a child that bad?
The room around me seemed to freeze as the spirit's voice appeared in the air. I looked around and noticed that everyone, including Erik, was still... What?
The icky man doesn't think so.
What do you mean? In the middle of the room, the spirit appeared, making me gasp. It floated over to Erik and spun around his head, making him light up slightly.
Well, if she were pregnant, I'd be able to expand my legacy.
Erik? Was that really what he was thinking? He wanted children to expand? No. No, this was the trick. I glared at the orb as it finally moved back to the center of the room. You're lying to me. Whatever you're trying to do won't work.
I'm not doing anything. Just look at him.
I did, wanting to prove the spirit wrong. However, my eyes couldn't lie to me. He had a nervous, almost pondering smile on his face, as if he was keeping quiet about his thoughts. Were the thoughts I heard really Erik's?
He's an icky man.
Oh, this orb with its icky man. Would you stop saying that?
It's true. He wants to make babies with you. You heard so yourself.
He didn't say that. But in a way, he did. Expanding his legacy. Who says that? Then again, the look on his face couldn't lie to me. The more I gazed into his eyes, the more I could see a form of disappointment. Was I overthinking it?
He keeps touching you and trying to make you feel good. He wants to make you have his babies.
I don't know what to pick on this part. I didn't know what to say, truly. I couldn't exactly lie and say that I wasn't somewhat convinced of what I was shown. Still, I wanted to trust in Erik, and we still need to fix the spirit haunting issue. I looked at the floating orb, seeing it bob up and down in place. So, how long do you plan on sticking around?
Sticking around?
How long do you plan on being in my body?
Oh, I don't know.
I didn't know. I wanted to stand up, but I felt my body stay in its place. I guess in whatever phase the spirit had me in, I could only shift my head, but not move from my spot. That only proved that this was in my head. You don't know?
I don't know.
How do you not know?
I just don't. I tried, but I can't get out.
This was proving to be useless. A childlike and innocent sounding this spirit was, this conversation was obviously going to go nowhere. I sighed and lowered my head, closing my eyes.
I was trapped when I died too, you know?
I looked at the spirits, suddenly curious. They were trapped when they died? As the world began to move around me, the orb vanished without a trace.
We have a different issue. My princess is being haunted by a spirit.
A spirit? But I can't hear its thoughts.
You can't catch everything, Damien.
That doesn't make sense. If a spirit's inside of her body, we would have sensed it.
That's the odd part. There's someone within her, but they are not powerful enough to be pinned down. It's as if...
It's a child.
Yes, how did you know?
Spirits of children are extremely versatile, miss. They are smaller and less noticeable than a regular spirit, but their emotions run just as high, if not higher, making them more powerful.
So a child made you fight Erik?
Yes, it also called Erik the Icky Man.
Well, you were for a long time, dude. You can't deny that.
That was before I met my princess.
I looked at Erik as he looked back to me. His eyes were full of love and appreciation as he smiled down at me, making a small blush run across my cheeks. Erik gently lifted his hand and caressed my cheek, making my face warm up as its touch.
You changed me for the better and turned me into a proper man. I would never wish for you to feel that I am disgusting.
Erik. Erik was so sweet to think of me. I loved him for everything that he was, and is. He was occasionally perverted and seductive now and then, but that was part of the charm I fell for. He was still my Erik. As I kissed his cheek, Erik gasped, and I could feel a quick forming warmth appear on his cheek under my lips. I pulled away and noticed a red tint across his face, but a loving smile plastered on its expression.
Should we leave? They look like they're ready to make those babies now. Ow!
Knock it off, Matthew.
Before anyone could laugh, however, another knock appeared at the door. Who is it?
Diana, dear. May I come in?
Sure. Come on in. As Diana entered, the room became silent. Her guard, Sero, followed behind. Diana stepped into the room as well, closing the door for her. He remained behind the door as Diana looked at my plate.
Did you not enjoy breakfast? I can make you something else if you'd like.
Huh? I quickly down my plate, realizing I had barely touched the food. I shook my head and looked up at Diana. No, this is great. We were just talking.
I see.
Thank you for breakfast, by the way.
My pleasure. I'm sorry that it's not much, but it's something to fill the stomach.
It's all good. It's better than that stew that everyone else was eating.
We had stew?
Trust me, don't worry about it. You're not missing much.
Indeed. Anyways, I came by to ask you something, dear.
Huh? Ask me what?
What exactly is going on? What was controlling you last night when your husband came around?
Right. Diana still didn't know what happened. Well, we were just talking about that. As I stared at Diana, I felt something inside me grow very happy. Why wouldn't I be? She was feeding us and making sure we were at least comfortable. Hell, she was going to break the curse on me and kill the Demon Lord. At least I hoped she would. Still, something felt odd about the way I felt. I shook my head and looked at Erik. He nodded and looked at Diana, causing her attention to turn to him.
A rogue spirit has taken refuge in her body.
A spirit?
How? We felt no such.
It's a child, Diana.
A mere child? What kind of child has that much anger and sadness that they can control a human body?
My lady, if I may.
Everyone in the room, myself included, looked to Sero, who had stepped forward by Diana's side. Diana took a moment to watch Sero, measuring his intentions before nodding and stepping back. With a nod, Sero turned away from her and looked to me. Huh? Sero stepped once more in my direction before bringing his spear up and pointing at me. What? Whoa.
What are you doing?
Without answering, Sero continued to stare at me intently. The spear in his hand began to glow a bright gold and white color, making me that much more concerned.
Sanctus et husexiamentes!
Before anyone could jump at Sero, the guard leaned forward and merely an inch towards me, pressing the spear closer to my body. However, it was stopped by a bright white magic barrier that suddenly formed around my body and the sound of a child screaming. The cry rang violently in my head, causing me to grip my head in pain. Gah!
Princess!
Erik reached for me, but found himself pressing against the shield as well, unable to get close to me. The sharp tip of Sero's spear pressed against the barrier, causing white ripples to wave from it. Sero pushed the spear harder, trying to pierce through. The screaming, however, intensified in my head with each push.
What in the seven hells?
I've never seen magic like that before.
I can hear it. The spirit is crying inside her head. It's hurting her.
Damn it!
Sero finally pulled back and stepped away from me. The glow around his spear vanished, and Sero looked at Diana. The screaming in my mind stopped at last, and the barrier finally vanished, allowing Erik to wrap his arms around me and pull me close to him.
This spirit is extremely powerful, my lady. Powerful enough to block holy magic.
That's impossible.
I quivered in Erik's embrace, feeling the after effects of the sudden event hit my body like a wave. My nerves were vibrating, every hair in my body was on edge. My eyes, despite this, looked to Erik and Sero. Diana looked at me and suddenly glared.
Clever spirit.
Clever spirit? What do you mean?
Look at who the spirit is haunting. She's practically bleeding endless waves of energy. The spirit must be consuming it to survive and use its abilities.
The entire room looked at me, and I could see in their eyes that this was right. Was I really that full of energy? What kind of energy? How did the amount of energy I had affect this?
The spirit is a demon, then?
Only a demon could make a barrier like that.
But a barrier against holy magic?
It's unheard of.
Not necessarily. If a demon is powerful enough, they can block holy magic, but it takes a large amount of energy.
We have to find another way to expel it. If holy magic won't work, something else will. Spirits can't bind themselves to living bodies forever.
Yeah, we'll get this spirit out one way or another.
Would we? The spirit was powerful enough to fight back against holy magic, which apparently was powerful on its own. I became nervous once again. Erik, feeling me tense up in his arms, gave my body a small squeeze in comfort. I closed my eyes, feeling his warmth slowly but surely calming me down.
Whatever the case may be, I'm sure we've at least weakened it. It shouldn't attempt to control you again, at least for today.
Thank you. Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room, pressing her lips into a fine line.
So, about all of you participating in the war, you all obviously need to train.
Everyone nodded in agreement to Diana's statement. While we weren't battle ready, we still needed to at least know how to defend ourselves. Diana, however, looked to me.
You, most of all.
Huh? Me? I was suddenly confused. How come I was the odd one out that had to be ready the most? The last thing I remember about me training was that Diana was against the idea altogether. Diana sighed and rubbed her temple.
Apparently, there are guidelines to breaking this curse. Not only do we have to kill the Demon Lord, but you have to be nearby when it happens for the curse to even break.
That makes no sense. Where did you learn this?
Shadow. He spent the night trying to find alternative ways to break your curse. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything of the sort, but we found the guidelines to breaking it.
Well, it still makes no sense.
Even while it doesn't, it's still better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to kill him and then still have you stuck here because of an error.
I could only sigh and take it in, so I had to be there when the Demon Lord fell. Great. Diana waved her hand dismissively through the air, breaking my potential thoughts.
Anyway, we can't have you dying on the way there, and we can't monitor you when we're in battle. You should at least know how to defend yourself. That's why we've come up with a solution.
Huh? What solution?
Simple. The other rebel leaders and Sero have agreed that if you'd like a trainer to enhance your abilities, you can train with one of them.
I stared, seeing Sero step forward with a nod.
Each of the leaders is proficient in a different area of magic and battle strategy, good enough for self-defense. I can't speak for the others, but I can assure you that with Sero's skill and training methods, you will be well prepared by the time the siege arrives.
Sero nodded and bowed to me slightly. While I was flattered at the idea that I really need a trainer, I knew Taekwondo, and I at least knew how to defend myself, demon or not. Then again, we were in the demon world, where magic was the norm. Military was Zero. Zero seemed skilled enough to train me. He was Diana's right hand, after all, and he was the one who apparently stopped the Demon Lord from getting his hands on me. I at least had to give it a shot. Zero nodded and looked at Diana, who crossed her arms.
Very well. You've made a good choice, I assure you.
With that, Diana turned on her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Everyone in the room nodded their information as Diana and Sarah left. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save right here. And we'll end as this is part 2. But, what do you guys think about the spirit? I don't know. I feel like it's a demon child, but at the same time, it makes you question, is the main character possibly pregnant? It makes, I don't know, to me it makes sense, and that's what I started thinking from the very beginning, that she is pregnant with a demon child because of based off that book we found earlier that explained about demon children. So, who knows? We'll continue the rest and see if maybe we get more answers in part 3, but right now we'll end in part 2 with you guys questioning, is the character pregnant? Or, is it really just a demon child spirit attached to my body? Who knows? More answers to follow. But anyway, though, thank you guys for enjoying Seduce Me 2, Part 2, The Demon War. Well, Part 2 of Erik's Route. But anyway, though, catch you guys another time.